Midnight in Eastern Africa. In Southern Africa, it's 11 p.m. And in Nigeria, and indeed in West Africa, it's 10 p.m. Let's check out tonight's top stories. Supreme Court affirms election victories of Gombe, Nasarawa, Delta, Ogun governors. Labour threatens mass protest over rising insecurity. EFCC chairman accuses agency's investigators of taking bribes. Thanks for joining us on Nigeria Tonight. I'm Kofi Bartels. Our coverage begins with a look at the post-election litigation matters. The Nigeria Supreme Court has affirmed the victories of 5 state governors, dismissing appeals seeking to remove them from office. The Apex Court, while dismissing the appeals for lack of merit, held that the various appellants in the suits were unable to prove their cases of overvoting and non-compliance with the nation's electoral laws. News Central's Marvelous Oboman, who was at the Supreme Court, here is his report.
Have you ever wondered what victory tastes like and the resounding echoes that it brings with it? These are party faithful, celebrating the recent Supreme Court judgment affirming the election victories of the governors of Kebbi, Gombe, Delta, Ogun, and Nasarawa states of Nigeria. What this means is that unsatisfied candidates and their parties who have challenged the election outcomes from the lower court up to the Supreme Court can now sheath their swords, as the judgment is binding on all. The Apex Court held that the appellants were unable to prove their case of overvoting and non-compliance with the nation's electoral laws and lacked merit.
We started the battle from the tribunal, and God gave us victory at the tribunal. God gave us victory at the Court of Appeal. And ultimately, thankfully, today, the Supreme Court has confirmed the judgment of the tribunal and confirmed the judgment of the Court of Appeal.
This victory actually is not for me. The victory is for democracy. The victory is for the good people of Nasarawa State. And by the grace of God, this is a victory that we can carry on to continue with the good work of Mr. President Bola Tinubu, our party, and it's a victory for mankind.
This victory means that we have reached the final bus stop with regards to the issue of election of the 2023 elections. And with no other place to go to, I call on all the appellants, because there were 2, and their parties, to join with us and work for the people of Gombe State.
Kebbi State doesn't belong to only ABC members, it's for all of us. We are calling for all and sundry in Kebbi State to join hands with the government of Comrade Nasir Arongondu so that we can move the nation forward.
I also want to thank my brother, Honorable Isa Ashuru, for approaching the court to ventilate his grievances. For me, that is democracy way. But having concluded today, I believe it is a high time for us to join hands together to work together with the progress of Kaduna State.
The legal contentions surrounding the election victories of governors of Ogun, Kebbi, Delta, and Nasarawa states have now been put to rest by the nation's Apex Court. It is expected that the governors who had already started functioning in office can now concentrate and get to work and deliver governance to its people. It will also be beneficial for the governors in their respective states to reach out to opposition candidates, build bridges for the good of all. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obomanu.
Thank you, Marvelous. In the meantime, the governor of Delta State, Sheriff Oborowori, has said he was confronted with 38 cases and won all before, during, and after the governorship election in his state. He stated this at an interdenominational Thanksgiving service held at the government chapel, Asaba, to mark his Supreme Court victory. Here's News Central's correspondent, Austin Azu, with the completion of the report.
Governor Oborowori, who arrived at the Asaba airport after the Supreme Court verdict, was received by political bigwigs and various support groups of the PDP in the state. The governor thereafter made his way to the State House, where he appreciated God for his victory. In his remarks, Governor Oborowori recounted how he was confronted with dozens of cases and won all. He extended the olive branch to other political parties in the state to join hands to move the state forward, and promised that he will continue to run all-inclusive government. He observed that he will remain a servant leader that will focus on the people first with a small agenda. Governor Oborowori, who also spoke to newsmen shortly after the Thanksgiving, commended the judiciary for remaining the last hope of the common man.
So this case, making it 38 cases, the highest in this country, pre-election matters and all the tribunal cases. There's no governor, even the one that have done 8 years, that they have 38 cases. And I won all the cases.
Meanwhile, the Inter-Party Advisory Council Delta State Chapter, in collaboration with CUPP and leaders of non-indigens in the states, have congratulated the governor on his victory at the Apex Court.
This victory, indeed, is a testimony and a confirmation that Deltans really voted for Sheriff Oborowori, who emerged under the platform of the People Democratic Party.
Similarly, some residents also have message for the governor.
Advise the winners to accept the responsibility of taking care of the state and try to perform better than the previous government.
In every contest, there is a winner. Whoever emerges as governor should be celebrated and should be supported to perform very well as far as the governance of Delta State is concerned.
Now that the Supreme Court has put to rest all litigations regarding the 2023 governorship election, there might not be any reason for the governor to fail in delivering the leadership for which the people voted for him. In Asaba for News Central, I'm Austin Azu.
In the meantime, the candidate, that's governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress in the Delta State governorship election, OVA, Umahi, has urged citizens of the state and his supporters to accept and abide by the judgment of the Supreme Court, which is the final court of the land. In a statement personally signed by Senator Umahi, the man who petitioned the Apex Court over the Delta governorship election, he urged citizens to promote peace everywhere in the state. He also extended gratitude to President Bola Tinubu, the national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Chairman Abdullahi Ganduje, for giving him the platform, and others who supported his quest and worked with him during the process of seeking to become the governor of Delta State. In congratulating Governor Oborowori, Senator Umahi admitted that it has been a long-drawn struggle, which is about to collect the collective interest of the good people of Delta State. He wished him well and prayed for wisdom for the governor to serve the people of the state. We have more stories ahead. We'll be right back after this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Nigeria Tonight, and we move to more stories. Let's quickly turn our attention to security matters now. With the menace of kidnapping in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, now seeming to be a daily occurrence, about 3 people were allegedly abducted at the Nigerian Army Post Service Estate in the Kudu area of the nation's federal capital. While the military is yet to release information on the incident, residents of the area say they now live in palpable fear over the rising insecurity in the FCT in light of the invasion of criminals on the military estate. Here's Idong Joseph with a report.
I am standing here at the Kurudu community in Abuja, and you can see behind me is the Kurudu Post Army Housing Estate, where it was reported that gunmen about 9 p.m. yesterday night invaded an extension of the estate, abducting 3 persons. Though we've gone into the estate to get a feel of the atmosphere, but met heavy military presence, which they denied us coverage of the scene. And so we have come out on the streets to get a reaction of residents within the area. After every effort at getting residents in and around the estate to speak to us on camera, some of them confirmed that they had gunshots but refused to speak out of fear. However, we soon got a resident of the estate who later agreed to speak, but on the condition of anonymity.
It's not a small gun battle yesterday. It was a serious gun battle. So it's serious gun battle between those kidnappers and the soldiers, because the soldiers intervened immediately. That is why it was even not more, even though it would have been more.
A former commissioner of police who spoke to News Central called for a joint operational force between the FCT and its bordering states.
FCT and other contiguous states, that is Nasarawa, Niger, Kaduna, and if they should have this form a joint operational network where they can be collaborating together, secure their borders, and assist each other. I will also recommend that if the Ministry of FCT chooses to establish a police security trust fund in FCT, because most of the major challenge the police is facing today is paucity of funds.
He also called for reform of the police in areas of welfare, provision of equipment, and provision of adequate manpower.
So population growth as well is expanding, while the police man strength is depleting through retirement, through other things like debt and so forth. So I think the government need to increase the strength of the police, government need to fund the police, government need to ensure that the police are well paid and well catered for, their welfare is improved, and when you have a motivated police force, they perform better.
Though the goal of ensuring the safety of lives and property lies in the hands of the government, citizens also have been advised to support the police with relevant information. In Abuja, for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Worried by the rising insecurity and especially kidnappings across the country, the organized labor says it is contemplating mobilizing for a mass protest to force the government to take action. Secretary General of the Nigerian Trade Union Congress, Nuhu Toro, who disclosed this on Friday, said that they may mobilize the general public on a protest against insecurity. According to him, labor is thinking along that lines as the safety of lives and property, which ought to be the priority of any government, has been relegated. The president of Precision Electrical and Related Equipment Senior Staff Association, Rufus Olusegun, expressed readiness of his union to join in mass protests based on how the issue touches the lives of everyone. Well, to further discuss issues around insecurity, we're joined by a former director of the State Security Services, Mr. Dennis Umahi. It's good to have you join us tonight.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Good evening. What's your assessment? And we've asked you this question many times. Well, we have recent developments, so we ask again. What's your assessment of the state of security in Nigeria?
Thank you very much for that question. I think we are not, as a country, we are not very serious about the threat of, those situations of insecurity like kidnapping, especially kidnapping for number one. We are not serious about it, because if we are serious about it, we would show that we are serious about it, and we will keep these kidnappers on their toes to make sure that, they are also on the run. But we allow them, they come in, they kidnap our citizens, they go take them away, nobody's pursuing them, they ask for ransom, and then we go ahead and pay. If we don't pay, they kill some of them, which is new now. Before, they don't used to kill hostages, but now they are killing. And I think basically what I'm hearing are political statements, we'll make sure it doesn't happen again and stuff like that. No concrete action, to stop it.
Nigeria's federal capital is fast becoming the epicenter of kidnapping in the country, which to some is a surprise. Mr. Dennis Amakri, do you see this trend metamorphosing into something bigger, with Abuja being the seat of power in the country? Are we walking a tightrope here?
First of all, I'll take you back. When it was happening in the Northwest, people were feeling that, it will not get to us. It's very far away. It moved. In fact, even the ones that were happening in the South, in the Niger Delta, many people were still thinking it will never get to Lagos. It will never get to Abuja. Then, of course, we have a reawakening, a very rude reawakening when the United Nations headquarters was bombed, and then, of course, the police headquarters in Abuja. And that happened. A lot of security measures were put in place, and then, of course, the city returned back to calm. And now we have allowed that to, people are relaxed, and then, of course, these guys are growing in impunity and audacity to move towards the seat of power. And if we don't stop this, I can tell you it will escalate into a situation where we might get some of our senators, legislators, or even ministers abducted. Then it becomes a more serious issue. But I think this is the time for us to address this issue.
All right, interesting. We had in the report before we brought you on, former CP, and this is a question I've asked before. He made a point that the police in the FCT need to collaborate with the police commands in the states surrounding the FCT. Talked about Niger State, Kaduna State, and Nasarawa State, and I'll add even Plateau State, which if you go through, I think in Kaduna or Niger State, we can just get into Abuja with all the banditry going on there. What do you say about that? Does the security response need to focus on, okay, can we go and be proactive to ensure some preventative, measures, because these people are coming in from neighboring states with Abuja in the middle?
There are many, many strategies, including what Mr. Loba, the former commissioner of police of the FCT, had said. There are many, and we've discussed it among ourselves. A lot of security professionals have given all kinds of suggestions, on how to deal with this. The seat of power must be safe. In fact, indeed, the whole country must be safe. And there are many, many strategies. Collaborative strategies with the DSS, police, army, is very, very important and necessary. But I think we are not systematically pursuing these strategies. Systematically is the operative word, whereby something happens, they kill some people in Plateau, we rush down there, Inspector General of Police will send in about some hundreds of policemen, they go there, they patrol. After a while, they go back to their posts, and then, of course, it continues, and then, of course, the bandits or terrorists will go ahead and strike again. we have to make it systematic. Systematic in the sense that the police itself must be structured. We want state police. We cannot be mouthing it, because when you have state police, they are going to cover the ungoverned spaces that exist in the country. There are areas that are being attacked and nobody is around. The presence of security men will come maybe around, 12 hours or so. By then, these guys are gone. But we want a situation where when they strike, or in fact being proactive, instead of waiting for them to strike, let us take this fight to them. They are inside Nigeria. So as long as they are inside our country, we should be able to, go to them, flush them out wherever they are, instead of waiting for them to attack, and then we go around looking for ransom or whatever.
All right, Mr. Dennis Umahi, it's good to have you again tonight, and thanks so very kindly for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Earlier, we brought you news of the response to the Supreme Court's ruling on the Delta State governorship election. The appellant at the Supreme Court was the candidate of the All Progressives Congress in the Delta State governorship election, which held last year, 2023. Senator Ovie Omo-Agege, and he released a statement urging citizens of Delta State and his supporters to accept and abide by the judgment of the Supreme Court, which he said is the final court of the land. He personally signed that statement as well. Well, joining us now to further discuss this and the entire situation as far as Supreme Court ruling is concerned is legal practitioner Libros Oshoma. Libros, good evening to you. Thank you very kindly for your time. We know you've had a busy day, but let's start this way. All the electoral victories of the incumbents, we look at Delta State, Gombe State, we look at Plateau State, and so on and so forth. Are you seeing a pure interpretation of the law by the Supreme Court that it tried as much as possible to grant the wish of the electorates?
Thank you. I will quickly say that the issue of today, actually, and just like last Friday, is the day that we'll say the election actually held in those states. Because over time, the main election has become ceremonial, where after the ceremonial election, we'll now wait for the re-election, which is at the Supreme Court. And it's quite unfortunate, even though the Supreme Court had consistently reiterated these same positions of the law that they reiterated today. But before I even go into that, I want to quickly touch on a piece of news you started with, which has to do with the statement issued by Senator Ovie Omo-Agege, the former Deputy Senate President. And I would say, with all sense of modesty, that for me, it's a congratulatory message after the Supreme Court judgment. It's belated, really. It's just like, rubber stamp, because after now there is nothing else to do. After now there is nothing else. I would have expected a congratulatory message. I would have saluted, the former Deputy Senate President and say he would be politically, a few inches taller if he had sent that congratulatory message immediately after the election. That's how we know good sportsmanship, because it was obvious. Quickly, permit me, it was obvious from Delta State, the numbers and the polls, that Ovie Omo-Agege in Delta was not as popular as people thought he was, because, I will say this quickly, because if you look at the election in Delta, the party itself, APC, were not too happy with the antics of the APC in Delta. APC Delta North, Cairo Jubo, who was also a national leader in the party, complained bitterly. And the Robos also, where Omo-Agege and the current governor, Sheriff Oboroweri, are from, also felt that Ovie Omo-Agege did not do much for Delta State, even as a Deputy Senate President, apart from all the projects that he initiated. All the projects only benefited his Orogun, village, and not even the entire Ughelli. And then lastly, some persons felt apart from him, no other person was elevated. Look at somebody like person like Mikey Guinea from Delta. One would have expected that being a deputy senate president, he would have used that opportunity to even elevate the person of Mikey Guinea to a national commissioner. All of these are the reasons why the vote went the way it went in Delta. And so, if you take it from there, I was trying to lay a foundation. If you take it for there, if you prepare for election properly, there will be no need to go to court. Look at what happened in Edo after the election of Obaseki. Even though people are not happy with Obaseki today, the candidate of the APC said, well, we're not going to go to court because the numbers were clear, the preparations were done, and the people spoke loudly.
But Liberals, are you seeing these decisions as a pure interpretation of the law? Or do you see this as, the Supreme Court trying to, as much as it can, grant the wishes of the electorates? Because all of them won today. They all won the elections.
Just like last Friday. Look, let me tell you, the issue here is the fact that we expect so much from the courts that, we're expecting the court to upturn because we're used to seeing the court upturn. And another thing I frown at is the fact that we hear governors going to thank the president after election was judgment are delivered at the court. You go to thank the president for not interfering. What that tells me is that the governors interfere. Everybody is used to interfering with judicial process. But to answer your question directly, what you are saying, because Supreme Court have consistently, read out this interpretation. Is it the issue of membership of political party? In the case of Peter Obi, the court reiterated that Section 77 does not apply when it has to do with post-election matter on membership of party. That is the court that the party that determine who is the member. The issue of so that rested the case of Kano. The issue of votes overvoting. The court also, the Supreme Court had laid down that position in Oshun's case. What should amount to overvoting? And also, it is a notorious fact that for every election, witnesses must speak to the issues. Witnesses must breathe life into the issues adumbrated or into the fact pleaded in court. The court cannot just sit down on its own, or the judges in chamber, to begin to determine which one is which ballot papers are stamped or which ballot papers are not stamped. It is a witness that will draw the attention of the court to that. But that as it may be, the Supreme Court has also said Section 63 give INEC the leverage to determine ballot papers, even though they are not stamped, provided they are from the ballot paper, the booklet of ballot papers issued by INEC. So all of these things are interpretations of the court that the court has, consistently followed. But just unfortunate that because politicians are used to going to court to give hope to their supporters. And so when that happens, it becomes like we're expecting the court to do magic. Elections should be determined by the people and not the courts.
All right. But looking at the, since the litigation started post-elections, a lot of tribunal judgments and even appeal court judgments have come under, criticism from a cross-section of Nigerians. With this latest set of governorship election petition judgments, would you say, how is it impacted on the public perception and the reputation of the judiciary in the eyes of Nigerians?
Yeah, last Friday, the Supreme Court came down heavily on some judges of the Court of Appeal. And what that also brings to the fore is the fact that we need to begin to look at how judges are appointed and how judges are elevated to the Court of Appeal. Remember, Olumide Akpata, as NBA national president, did also raise alarm, when he spoke about the elevation of judges to the Court of Appeal and the interview conducted, how some of them, he didn't feel that some of them should have even merited that list. Professor Chidi Odinkalu also talked about the NJC and the appointment of judges, where appointment of judges is almost becoming, a family affair where children of judges and wives of judges are elevated as judges. So the quality of judges that we elevate and appoint will determine the quality of judgment that we get. And that's why, look at unfortunate scenario that played out in Plateau, all of the House of Assembly members now their election has been nullified. The PDP members have been nullified on a premise or on a conclusion reached by Court of Appeal, which has been nullified, which have been overturned by the Supreme Court. And so, yet, the time for determining appeal at that level had lapsed, and you can no longer take appeal from that level to the Supreme Court for election, for matters that have to do with election, bordering on the House of Assembly, House of Rep, and Senate. And so, yes, there's a miscarriage of justice. And also, lastly, on this, that's why we need to also consistently insist that INEC should mean what they say and write what they mean. Not a situation where INEC comes on air to say a different thing and their electoral guidelines say purely a different thing. A situation where you say you want to transmit the election result online real time, and yet your regulation 93 is saying a different thing altogether, that collation shall be manual. So when you have this inconsistency, it also affects the outcome of the election, and then the perception of the way people see election will be different. And rather than election being the election date proper, the ballot and the box, people will, carry out that ceremonial process and now eventually be waiting on the court to determine their fate, which is quite unfortunate.
Quite interesting developments, Libras, and of course, we have come to an interesting juncture in the post-election litigation. Well, let's see what happens going forward, but it's been a pleasure having you tonight on the program.
My pleasure, too.
Thank you very much. You're watching Nigeria Tonight right here on News Central Television. We have more stories coming up after the break. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Nigeria Tonight on News Central TV. To more stories now, residents of Borno State will head to the polls tomorrow to cast their votes in local government elections. Despite the low-key campaigns in the state, people will travel to their localities, including those at the border towns, as part of steps to exercise their democratic rights, as the State Independent Electoral Commission has distributed both sensitive and non-sensitive materials across the state. Here's News Central's Umahi, who joins us from Borno State with this report on the happenings there.
This is the situation at the Borno State Independent Electoral Commission in Maiduguri, the state capital, as electoral officers move out with sensitive and non-sensitive materials for the conduct of the chairmanship and councillorship elections.
I receive everything. I receive sensitive and non-sensitive. I will be heading to Goza right away.
The distribution of the election materials started on Thursday and has been carried out successfully according to the leadership of the State Independent Electoral Commission.
We have distributed material yesterday, you can see, to 312 wards and 5,071 polling units in the state. But so far so good. The security personnel are on ground. They have given us all the support.
Despite the limited campaign activities, residents of Borno State have been preparing for the elections in their own quota.
Our vote is our power. Our vote is our right. So we are going to choose a leader that is going to be very, very caring for his people.
Local government election in Borno State particularly is a welcome development and is going to be done, inshallah, successfully.
Tashambama Motor Park is among the busy area in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, where people are gearing up to travel to their own localities to cast their ballot.
If we do not vote candidate of our choice, it will be a problem. That is why we mobilize our people. We are going out now, go and vote our candidates.
Primary election, secondary election.
Residents have been discussing the issues that matter most to them and researching the candidates' backgrounds through various means, including social media.
Gwamnati da nan adalci da audo jama'a karzana madu ngawo da sita jama'ar karzana da ce tunda siyasa da a fi magadiro gansha tadin jama'an kadmaro.
Kamu mutanen Borno ban mayan abu guda biyu. In kaga a Borno abu ya zo guda biyu to baki ne sun dawo da shi bayan garin bane. Kuma by the grace of God 11 o'clock zamu gama zabe gobe insha Allah.
Bari kafa Klewa Sulema insha Allah jama'an da san masolu kuriya andiro kolzain.
Residents are hopeful that the chairmanship and councillorship elections will be conducted smoothly, expressing trust in the Borno State Independent Electoral Commission's ability to oversee a fair and transparent process. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umori Kirawa.
Well, joining us to look at the forthcoming local government elections in Borno State is Ibrahim Uba Yusuf. He is a lecturer at the Department of Mass Communication at the prestigious University of Maiduguri. Mr. Uba Yusuf, it's good to have you join us on the news tonight. Good evening. All right, Mr. Uba Yusuf, Dr. Uba Yusuf, what are your expectations for tomorrow's local government elections in Borno State? It's quite an interesting development for a state that has had, some security challenges in the past. All right, we have lost the contact with Ibrahim Uba Yusuf, and as soon as we have a connection with him, we will put him back on the air. Well, staying with election matters, the Independent National Electoral Commission in Plateau State has confirmed the eligibility of the People's Democratic Party to participate in the Plateau North Senatorial rerun election. The confirmation was made by the resident electoral commissioner, Teso Agudu, during a media briefing at the INEC headquarters in Jos. News Central's Chizoba Aniowe completes the story.
This is the first briefing and media interaction by the Commission this year in Plateau State. The major outcome of the media brief was the confirmation of participating political parties in the forthcoming election.
I say the standard procedure is still the same. It's expected that all characters are the same, and those who participated are still expected to feature in a rerun election or otherwise stated. But as of today, there is no such a statement officially coming from the headquarters that this or that is not participating. So I will crave the understanding that let us work on the basic assumption that a rerun election involved the parties that earlier participated.
This may have put to rest many doubts and confusion surrounding the judgment of the appeal court on legislative election petitions in Plateau State. The forthcoming election will hold in 6 local government areas of Barkin Ladi, Bassa, Jos East, Jos North, Jos South, and Riom. The resident electoral commissioner added that measures have been put in place to reverse previous records of insecurity that had marred many electoral activities in some of these council areas.
You also have the role to play very seriously in trying to highlight this fact that those who have responsibility to secure these places should do so. We cannot have a country where issues that borders on security can be predictable, yet people, those who have responsibility, will allow it to come to pass.
While preparations for the rerun continue in different quarters, journalists have been urged to remain professional in their reportage, just as was seen in the last general election. In Jos for News Central, I am Chizoba Aniowe.
Away from election matters, Chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ola Olukoyede, has alleged that some of the Commission's investigators are taking bribes, noting that he had a process in motion to fish them out. Olukoyede made this known in his New Year address to staff members of the anti-graft agency at the Commission's headquarters in Abuja. The AFCC chairman, who described the situation as embarrassing for the anti-graft agency, said the Department of Internal Affairs of the agency has been directed to be more active and vigilant to monitor staff in all their engagements. He warned that such conduct will no longer be tolerated under his watch, and he vowed that he will wield the big stick against investigators who take bribes. Well, following the recent forceful arrest of a guest from a live television studio in Umahi by some men of the Abia State Command of the Nigeria Police Force, The state's Commissioner of Police, Kenechukwu Onwumele, has ordered their orderly room trial and commensurate sanctions if found guilty. Said police officers had stormed the online television and radio station in Umahi to effect the arrest of a guest and ended up damaging some of the studio equipment. Yes, News Central's Chinwe Ogeli, who reports that since the incident there have been various reactions from various quarters.
Anything. You're a criminal. What did I do? Who did I say anything for?
It was a viral video that drew the attention of the security, media, and civil society groups. A young graduate from the university, Bernard Udensi, who was whisked away from the studio by some 4 policemen, says he was shocked at the police action.
I think the lack of understanding of the Nigerian police investigation. Without investigating a crime, you're already calling somebody a criminal. It's against the law. So I was surprised to hear such.
So them coming in to, the accusation that I was giving a criminal an audience on a live program was terrible. Like, it's like a defamation of my character.
He said he sustained injury during the unwarranted confrontation and revealed that the matter had been resolved peacefully.
I really want to specially thank the Commissioner of Police in Abia State for his fair judgment and to seek that justice stand.
The Commissioner of Police, Kenechukwu Onwumele, visited the studio to assess the situation and concluded that his officers were unprofessional in their conduct. In the statement signed by the Police Public Relations Officer, Maureen Chinaka, the Commissioner of Police apologized to the management of the media outfit and promised to work towards achieving a rule of law compliant police. On his part, the state chairman of Nigeria Union of Journalists, Mr. Victor Ndukwe, condemned the act, which he said is capable of sabotaging the Freedom of Information Act.
The style in Abia State, which has become a regular occurrence, where the police or any law enforcement agents will go to the station or any media house to damage equipment, to arrest somebody or to intimidate somebody for whatever reason, it's a no-no for us. It shouldn't be happening in any part of Nigeria, let alone Abia State. And we condemn that, and we are saying that it should stop forthwith.
And the best thing to do is having what we call a democratic approach to issues. You need to negotiate, you need to have a conversation. It's only when somebody has been proven guilty that you can call the person a kidnapper and armed robber. But until then, you don't have that right to label somebody a kidnapper or an armed robber. The studio is like the sacred room of the media and should be respected by all, including security men. In Umahi for News Central, Chinwe Ogeli.
Nigeria's inflation rate climbed to a level not seen in over 27 years in December 2023 as the price of food significantly increased. Well, to address this, economists recommend the nation implement policies aimed at bolstering its economic situation, such as those targeting food availability and affordability, in order to relieve the pressures tied to rising consumer costs. News Central's Ni Omoni has more in this report.
As the largest economy in Africa, Nigeria faces mounting inflationary pressures. The country's central bank governor, Olayemi Cardoso, who assumed office in September, has yet to hold an interest rate setting meeting, adding to calls for action. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, consumer inflation rose from 28.2% in November to 28.92% in December, the highest level since mid-1996. Food inflation, which makes up a significant portion of Nigeria's consumer basket, climbed from 32.84% to 33.93% over the same period. A wide range of food items experienced price hikes, such as bread and cereal, oil, fish, meat, fruit, and eggs.
You can't even touch the foreign rice because rice now is like 6 times 2.
If you go buy 4 3 chicken, you add money for him. The transfer money you go add because the fuel you don't add money.
Before one model of the ginger it was 300, now it's 500. Everything is like that. Increase the price.
analysts note higher fuel costs and a weaker naira currency have also contributed to inflation.
Some of the initiatives that we've seen, such as this 500,000 hectare cultivation of land that the government is currently initiating in the northern region of the country, I think it's a good initiative in such a way that you are trying to promote food production, because the bulk of that inflation that we're currently seeing is coming as a result of food inflation.
If you look at the outlook for inflation in the 2024 budget, it is deemed that in terms of food inflation, a lot of the cost is largely structural. The solution lies in being a collective effort. It's not a single effort. It's a collaborative effort.
On the part of the government, various economic reforms are planned, including partnerships with the private sector to boost revenue generation.
There is a lot that private sector can do. There's a lot of money out there. The role of public officers is even to lead so that private capital can come. And President has been doing so, leading himself. All areas are open for private capital to flow.
However, scrapping fuel subsidies and currency devaluation aimed at stimulating growth have failed to curb inflation or jumpstart the economy to date. Experts stress the urgent need for policies that can strengthen Nigeria's economic conditions. In Lagos for News Central, Umahi.
Thank you, Ni. And that's all tonight. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the big stories. Nigeria's Supreme Court has affirmed the election victories of Gombe, Nasarawa Delta, and Ogun State governors. Nigeria's organized labor has threatened a mass protest over the rising insecurity in the country. We also told you that the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission's chairman has accused the agency's investigators of bribe taking. Please send us your eyewitness reports using the WhatsApp number and email address on your screen. You can also follow us on social media. As you can see, we're active on the major platforms at News Central TV. Also watch News Central TV live anywhere you go on any of these channels or platforms. Many thanks for joining us through this week on Nigeria Tonight. My name is Kofi Bartels. Nigeria, good night.